Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to the New Voices concert day after Thanksgiving edition.
I'm still trying to get used to this. Like when you look at yourself in the mirror kind of situation. It looks like we actually tried to,
Like we swapped.
like we matched.
Oh, we got the yellow going. We didn't even
Yes.
try to do
I
that.
can't even fix my hat.
Hope everybody
we-
had a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. I know that we're tired and stuffed and don't even want to be on camera right now with the amount of food that we ate. But here we are with a very special month of our New Voices series. We're taking a little bit of a break of introducing you to a bunch of new musical theater work artists. What do you keep doing?
I'm trying to fix my hat and I can't fix it mirror-wise because I can't tell which is which. This is weird.
I mean, the side closest to me is...
Dude, fix my hat. Gotta fix the hat.
To what? This?
No. I want it up.
Like this?
Yeah.
There. Is that better?
Sort of. Whatever.
All right. I can't. All of our people are giving you thumbs up.
Okay,
so
cool.
I think we're good.
Okay, cool.
We're taking a break from our usual New Voices concert series of introducing you all to brand new musical theater artists because towards the end of this year, we had a huge privilege to work with Blind Spot Collection and then Collective, and Catherine and Blake, who are over there. And Catherine, you'll be meeting in just a second, to do a very interesting musical that was meant to be created in the audio space, that was created by activists, and it's verbatim theater. So they went through and they interviewed a bunch of young activists, and then we were given some of that dialogue, and through that dialogue, we had to create music using that as our lyrics, and also all of their script is verbatim as well. So it was a really interesting process that we can't wait for Catherine to share with you guys, but that's why we're here.
It's super interesting because I think the idea for us, because, this is something that we as creators are very interested in. We're very interested in marginalized voices. We're very much interested in their story and how do we tell their story today? How does their story affect a community? How does it affect the public? And how does it create change within society? So this is something that we're already dealing with our musicals. And so it's always an interesting thing when you can collaborate with other like-minded people who are super talented and are willing to give you the space as a creator to kind of create. And what I really loved about our time with Catherine and Blake, because they're so chill, is that they're just like, yeah, go for it. And as composers, we're lucky because we write the full thing of our musicals typically, but you don't usually get that, when in collaboration with someone else. So that was always great. But, at the same time, it's like, okay, but here's the verbatim language. And so that was our challenge, is to take the actual words of someone else and then write a song to it. It's not like, and we took that challenge seriously, to the point where there are some songs that are actually just verbatim of what those interviews were. And the question was, can we make a song out of this?
Right.
And so that was super fun in that way. But I think what's interesting is that it's not that it's interviews of young activists. I think it's interviews of young people whose voices that matter, and that it shows that any of them can be an activist. They all have something that they care about and that they want to change. And young voices usually get ignored because of their youth. And I personally believe that you don't have any activism today. You have no big social changes within culture without young folks.
Right.
It is because of them that we have seen the movements throughout the ages, because they're impatient. They want the change now.
Right.
They want to see the world that they believe in now.
Right.
And that's exciting. If we left it up to all of us older folks, nothing would change.
Even if you think about freedom riders, it's interesting because now, without context, we look at John Lewis and Diane Nash, and we look at them old, and we don't have this idea of how young they actually were when they were involved and when they were doing that. And we're talking about kids. Literally, kids calling up Congress, and Congress going, why are these kids calling me? Like, kids are calling me right now, and riding buses and putting their lives in danger. And that's always been the trend throughout history, that it's created in the young voices. And it's not only exciting to get to work with actual dialogue from those young voices, but also to have young voices through our actors that we're going to introduce you to today as well, who were able to take that and make that their own.
Yeah,
well.
well, we don't want to ruin it.
Okay, we won't ruin it.
Because we want Catherine to kind of talk about the process of how they came to whether, how they were matching and what they wanted to do. We don't want to tell you everything. So let's
bring Catherine on, one of the creators here. Catherine, hi.
Hey guys, good. I'm glad you're with me. I was like, I hope I'm not going to be by myself here. I like the conversation, but yeah, I'm so happy to be here, and I really want to echo what Ricky and Taran are saying. That Blake and I felt really fortunate when we came upon like-minded musicians and composers who really believe in the art form to create collective change, and that's the heart of our work, and I know it's at the heart of their work, and so we're a real natural fit. And that was at the heart of this piece, Good Trouble, that we all conspired and created together. Ultimately, a group of 22 artists were part of this in some form, between the production team and the creative team and the actors. But it started. It was a very rapid process. As Ricky and Taran can attest to, we kind of moved quickly, and a big part of that was because Blind Spot seeks to be responsive to the moment, and so we had the opportunity in early August to ask a question. We had a grant, and we said, okay, what's the right piece for this moment? Early August, and we were in the midst of pandemic, so we were very limited. We were also collectively grieving. We had just lost John Lewis, also, who was a great civil rights leader to us. We also had this new incredible surge of Black Lives Matter, kind of the next wave of the movement and propelling it. And as a company, we do seek to sort of shift the lens to the perspective of people and voices that are not necessarily typically in the spotlight or kind of on the main stage. And so we thought the youth, just as Ricky was saying, the youth have been leading the way, especially as portrayed over the summer in the Black Lives Matter movement, but really over the course of the last few years in so many of the movements related to environmental activism, feminism, LGBTQ rights, March for Our Lives, and so on. Yeah. And so we said, okay, I think that's the thing. It needs to be COVID friendly. We also want it to be uplifting. Activism it can be a really painful topic in many ways because it's about a need that is unfulfilled, but we wanted to infuse it with hope too. So the verbatim piece, you never know what you're going to get. You're trusting the voices that are there. You're trusting your interview subjects, which we had 40 plus interview subjects, one of whom is actually one of our actors who is on here. AJ was an interview subject, and can speak to that. But we also felt like the heart of an activist movement, at the end of the day, it's justice, it's love. It's people desiring to live in equality, and so, and that is so perfectly embodied by John Lewis. Even though we all perform it differently, right? Many activists, maybe you don't necessarily look at every activist and think, oh, there's a movement of love, but at the heart of it, it's about fighting for each other, fighting for our rights. So an essential part of performance that is meant to offer hope and really boost morale and energy is music, which is why it was really a no-brainer for us to hearken to our allies, Ricky and Taran, Alan and Gray production, because we had just recently worked with them on something and got to know their work and the synergy between us. We also put in poetry and an interactive element by which audiences could. So, I mean, briefly to tell you that the whole concept of it was to put together verbatim theater interviews through a musical and poetry, and invite audiences to a physical space, masked and physically distant, in parks. So outdoor in parks, to basically perform a protest. We call it a musical protest together. And so there are prompts throughout this 60-minute audio piece that they're streaming and listening to that allow them to really embody protest, to raise their fists, to applaud one another, all the people who showed up, to lay down, to lie in, die in, and so on. But that's kind of the overview of what we set out to do, and we had incredible partners and artists along the way. But that's kind of the main thing.
We would love for people to get a taste of what exactly we're talking about. And this is an audio play, so all of our clips that we're going to play today are the finished. It's the finished product. It's the audio play, and we're going to play little clips of that. So, Catherine, if we can, I think we want to do Nina's Lament for a second, and then we'll bring you back and we'll talk a little bit more.
Perfect.
Here's Nina's Lament.
I know that I can make a change that echoes out across the world.
One way that I'm an activist outside of protesting is like, everybody in my family is such a hard Republican. And whenever all of our family hangs out, it's always like, Eden, like, just keep the peace. But I don't really want to keep the peace. Like, I talk to my relatives and my parents, and I'm like, this is unprecedented, is it not? And they're like, well, we have Vietnam. And I'm like, well, okay, we have Iraq. We have Afghanistan. Coronavirus. We have extreme police brutality. We have school shootings, and the economy is also really sucky. Pretty much everyone's in debt, and national debt is also crazy. Oh, and the planet is dying. So it's like, shut up and sit down. It's our turn to fucking drive.
And I am here for you no matter where we are. We Arlington change, a change that we are.
I'm hoping we'll take this as an opportunity to rebuild and to renew our faith in humanity and to restart. We've gone through COVID-19. We've gone through riots. And now it's time for us to rebuild. I'm hoping what will happen is when the history books look back on 2020, that people see we were actually able to make change.
Through the chants and through the songs and through the pain, we all together, we're the same. We all together, we're the same.
Really, the shift is changing in that we as a community of people of color, of queer folk, of women, of all minorities are getting together and saying it is not my job to stay uncomfortable anymore. It is your job to face how you are making me uncomfortable and change your behavior. We are holding people accountable for the first time ever on a mass scale. And the more that we put that pressure on the people who are actually traumatizing and abusing these communities, the more justice we will see. But the biggest thing is that we all need to continue to fight. This cannot just be a moment, it's a movement.
I know that I can make a change that echoes out across the world to show you that you're not alone. And I am here for you no matter where we are linked to change that we are. Through the chants and through the songs and through the pain, we all together, we're the same. We all together, we're the same.
Atlanta, Seattle,
Chicago, Los
Spain,
Angeles, Mexico,
Houston,
Norway,
Germany,
Pakistan,
Puerto Rico, Rome,
Louisville,
Peru,
Russia, Japan,
Brazil, France,
Palestine,
Turkey,
Nashville,
Nigeria, Australia,
New Orleans,
San Diego,
Phoenix.
Yeah.
Cool. So I mean, it's so cool. Like, I think it's so funny because Taran and I writing the music and stuff for the show. I don't think we had like really an idea of what you and Blake had in your head until we heard the final thing. You know, we were just like, okay, just trust the process and, you know, continue to do the thing. And it was so cool to like hear it auditory wise. You know, even during rehearsals, it's, you know, you can get a sense of it, but you don't get a sense of it until it. Tell us about that process, because you you two had to take this, like, you had to take a bunch of this, this verbatim text and create out something that the audience could track with and an arc, and at the same time still create these highs and rises of emotion and statements.
Yeah.
That must have been, and plus you wrote the poetry.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and that's why I was like, honestly, when you said you guys were trusting the process and you were just flowing with it, I also felt like you all had such an incredible instinct. And because it did feel like it was all these pieces that were just kind of all floating up in the air, and Blake and I are co-editing the verbatim, which is also, you guys are collaborators. It's tricky to kind of work on getting on the same page on the concept, and so. But I mean, generally, we decided on 8 characters. That were composite. Most of them were composites between a few of the interviews. And so that was the first process of sort of narrowing down the concept of the script. And we wanted them to embody, several of the issues that I was talking about, of LGBTQ rights, gun violence, feminism, Black Lives Matter, environmental justice and climate change. And so we had issues on the table. We had sort of strong characters, a spread of characters, diverse characters, and then we knew. So then we knew we wanted to sort of introduce them, in terms of like searching for editing. We knew we wanted to get to the heart of certain issues, and we knew that we needed music and poetry to uplift it sort of throughout the process, and that was kind of all we knew going in. I think from there, it's a sort of collaging, and you all, we were responding to what you were doing too. So you were giving us music, and we'd be like, okay, and we might shuffle something around in light of that. It's kind of hard to say, because it just sort of, I started it out and I'd pass it over to Blake, and then we'd both tinker a little bit, and then,
It's funny because that process is actually a little more foreign to Richard than it is to me, because as writers together, him and I are always writing. I'm not the book writer, so a lot of times he'll say, hey, in this scene, we're looking for a song that has this kind of a feel, and him and I will set out to write it. And it's not until later that I see how that actually fits into a piece too. But it's fun to finally bring him in on that on that side of it and be like, see,
that's awesome. And Blake, I can say, because he's not with us, it's always been Blake is our verbatim theater specialist. He's really been doing this work for a really long time, and I learned a lot of it from him. And it's always been his dream to include music in that process, to make a musical theater verbatim piece. And so that was a joy that we got to sort of say, oh, here's some lyrics that that were given to us, and we'd like to put them in here according to the kind of arc of the thing. And then
well, the characters are so rich, and
that's really cool. Well, stop you for a second. I think one of the things that the song you're hearing that we just played, I know that you can make a change that can echo across the world. I just want to reiterate, those lyrics is verbatim text that we got, and typically I would say a majority of the music that we've written over the other 4 musicals, including the piano, the musical that we did with Blind Spot and La Jolla Playhouse, it's typically written from this idea of, typically standard poetry, rhyme, and stanzas. And here we are, now we have a conversation, what someone is saying, as opposed to, this built into idea of what we're going to do poetically. And so that was interesting for us, because we're just literally going, how do we make this musical, as opposed to, having any form. It has no form whatsoever. It literally is, the form is literally just I don't know, how do you say, just the function of the words and what the artist is saying in the verbatim text. That's unusual.
Yeah, it almost feels like you're documenting something, as opposed to it almost feels more like you're like a journalist in some ways.
I think it's a good exercise. I think every master's program that works with composers should have them do verbatim text and write a song. I think it is very much a hard exercise that we looked, and there was a time when, because you guys gave us you folks gave us a lot of freedom, and you were like, okay, if you guys feel the need to change anything, go for it. And we looked at ourselves and we were like, oh, okay, let's just not try to change anything. Let's just try to keep everything as it is. Let's see if that works. And to let go in that way was kind of cool to see what would come out. But I think
it was incredibly musical and really beautiful. And somehow, so how would you describe how it actually did somehow fit in a musical way without the kind of the poetry as you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I think that it's the idea of what musical theater at its core kind of is that these songs are an extension of the emotion, and so whatever you're coming out of emotionally, at some point that person, that character, can no longer express it through dialogue. They have to sing it, and I think that in a lot of ways, it's like, it's the oldest trick in musical theater, but in so many ways, I think that it perfectly fits into the idea of verbatim theater, because there are those moments in the dialogue that we looked at where we're like, okay, this is that moment of like deep expression, like this. They have to sing that. They have to sing this section. Like
I think it's interesting too, because I think what it also does is it makes you a more modern writer. I think there's a modernity to not using rhymes and the stanza style. I think if you listen to pop music today on the radio, they're not doing that. They're not rhyming the second and the fourth line. They're just not.
Ain't your mama's Sondheim.
Right. Yeah, they're not doing that. And I think what it does is it brings a modernity to music, and it really does echo the voice of young folks out there. They're looking to say what they need to say and say it as fast and easy as possible. They want to just get across their point. And I think that's what it does. And that's cool. I feel cool for once.
You're damn cool, both of you.
Yeah, I feel cool. But I think it'd be cool to bring on the others.
Yeah.
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, I think, you want to do that, or you want to go to a song, or
Let's bring them on before we go to
Perfect, love it. So some of those amazing actors that we're talking about that you're hearing in these recordings, we're going to bring them on right now. We have Nathan Nonhoff, who played our revolutionary. And then we have Kiara here, and we have AJ. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Some of you are muted. There, gotcha all. Good to see everybody. So before we jump into another song, especially ones that feature you guys, because I knew he was coming on here, I kind of want to talk first just with you guys about, if we can, about what it felt like to knowing that you're coming in. AJ, you have a very unique experience in this that I'd love to talk about. And Kira and Nathan, like what it felt like to come into this knowing that these were verbatim words spoken by people and not created from a creative point of view.
Well, you're not being actors per se, right? And I think that was one of the things, like, don't act in a way. You figure out how to, and Catherine can talk about that. Your approach to the actors for this one, for verbatim theater, was a little bit different than what you would approach for a different play. Can you talk us through that process?
You want me to start?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So really, normally too, in verbatim theater, we're not just mimicking the voice as precisely as we know how to. We're also taking notes on the mannerisms of the people as we're interviewing them. So as much as possible, you're performing a real person. And so with that, it's a lot more subtle. Normally theater has a lot more of a dramatic, tones and performing something with emotion, whereas our goal was really to sound as natural, as kind of interview-like, the feeling that you're speaking to another person, kind of intimate as possible. And so I know that was a lot of the direction that Blake was offering to the actors, with the exception of Nathan. Actually, Nathan's role as the poet, he had a very particular stylization, actually, that we were working with him on. But AJ and Kiara can speak to capturing the actors in subtle, verbatim, precise kind of way.
Yeah, AJ, I would love to start with you because I actually want to show them your song right after this. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to be interviewed and then go from that process into a performance version of that?
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me here. I think the interview part was really interesting because, again, it was very conversational. If you know of anyone that has interviewed you in Blind Spot, you'll feel and understand that everyone's on the same page about their activism. And even though that differs and there are different movements, I think there's this kind of common place of, oh, I totally understand your energy right now. I understand the passion and the frustration that comes with being someone that is actually devoted into your activism. And so translating that into, acting it into a script and reading it from a script, I think at first, even myself, even being someone that was interviewed, I think we were all kind of like very theatrical and we were leading with so much emotion, but there were moments where you realize that in an interview in a natural setting, there are moments of hesitation. There are those little dips and what I think we call pits and peaks that come naturally when we also talk about the not so glamorous parts of activism and the kind of emotional toll it also comes with. So I think that journey has definitely been a learning experience, not just acting wise, but for activism and activists as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Kira, I find this is my first time with verbatim theater. I don't know if you have performed it before. But what, from your perspective, if this was your first time as an actress approaching it, how do you approach this?
I don't know. Yeah, it was definitely my first time doing verbatim theater ever. And of course, I've watched it and experienced it, but doing it is a totally different thing. So for me, I think, coming to our first read through together as a cast was really fun, but as we, really working through it, I almost found it easier because not only knowing that you're saying the words of a real person, not only kind of takes away the sort of need to create something, especially because it is, not only it's the words of a real person, but speaking about real issues that are extremely relevant and current. It kind of takes away the need to find something, to act upon because it's your life. It's what we see. It's happening right now. So I found it really nice actually to be able to lean into, the way that I naturally speak in different pauses and rhythms that you already know, but don't often bring into the theater space because of tradition and all that stuff.
Yeah, that stuff. I love it. Well, we're gonna show one of the songs.
This is gonna be Our Truth, and this one actually features AJ in it, so we're really excited to play this here. This is Our Truth from Good Trouble.
I think America will be completely different 50 years from now, in a positive way.
Our truth is our truth, and we walk in our power, and we walk in that truth.
It doesn't take an extraordinary person to do extraordinary things. It takes a person willing to want change.
I think a lot of people assume that, we're going to give a voice to those who are voiceless. But I completely disagree. I don't think we're voiceless.
I understand that I have power, that I have a voice.
I think we have a voice. I have a voice.
And that if I use that voice, I could alter everything.
We've had a voice. We just need people to listen.
Our truth is our truth, and we walk
sing with us. Our truth is our truth, and we walk in our power, and we walk in our truth. And we walk in our power, and we walk in our all together now.
Our truth is our truth.
Is our truth.
And we walk in our power, and we walk in our
And we walk
In our
Yes, with
Yeah.
AJ on the big notes at the end there.
And then we have also, everyone was singing on this one,
Yeah.
but also, Nathan doing the what we call the Kirk Franklin speak.
All together now.
All together now.
Do you want a revolution?
Yeah.
All together now.
All together now. I mean, I really love that because I think that for me, that song it was really interesting to approach that song from a secular perspective. For those of us who've been in church all our lives, we are used to that kind of sound, and replacing some of those words. If we would say our God in that, it would be very much that world. It's interesting to replace it with a secular world word and what that means, and the idea that there's this sense of praise about truth. I mean, something hit me about that when we were writing that song, and I was like, oh gosh, I want to see this. I want to see people gathered in that same way, humanly, in humanity, and saying that there's something. Our collectiveness together is huge, and it's something for us to really praise. And I really love that was the direction, Catherine, that you and Blake led us to for that song. I think it's really such a cool song because of that.
Yeah, and I think we should all talk about the process of this and how we recorded these songs, because obviously 2020 hasn't done any of us
the whole
right.
show. So how they
Yeah.
recorded the whole show.
Yeah.
Catherine, if you want to talk about it.
I can start, but you all were part of it too, and I know Taran was editing and mixing down and all that craziness. But basically, every individual was recording on their own separate device. Most people on phones, some people on mics. They submitted 3 to 4 versions of their recording, and then we had a sound designer who had to just splice everything together. Blake primarily was making the selections as he was the director. And then separately, they were submitting their music to Ricky and Taran. Do you guys want to talk about that part of it?
Sure. Well, this is our we've been doing this since the beginning of the pandemic, which is recording a lot of music and having people do it through their phone. So for us, this is pretty much standard now, us working with people through their phones. I know for a lot of the actors, this was not the standard in a first time approach. So I would love to get their take on it.
Yeah, I think opening it up to Nathan and Kira and AJ on what was your takeaway on the process as an actor, of how this all went down?
I think for me, it was just like I think just a kind of a cool learning curve. I mean, we've done a lot of projects like that, but it's, sort of the beginning of just continuing to do this type of art and this type of theater with the circumstances that we're given. And so I think it was just a cool opportunity to learn and expand as an artist. And, of course, there are frustrations and all sorts of other things that come by, but ultimately you're coming out with a really cool product. And it's always the process of getting to that. And so learning that and learning how to incorporate that into what we already do was a fun challenge. It was really fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. AJ, what oh, sorry, no, Kira, go ahead, please.
No, I was just saying that I was gonna agree with Nathan in that it was definitely a learning curve. Like when I did the little like blind spot collective takeover, I like mentioned how my method was a fort, a blanket of sorts over my head to soundproof Harlem because they be loud. But it worked out great. But it was definitely a fun challenge for me. AJ.
Yeah, I agree with what Nathan and Kiara were saying. It was definitely a learning curve. I think it also taught us how resourceful we can be and how lucky we are right now to have the access to just even our smartphone, because that's all I used to do all the recordings, and it just showed like no excuses. If you really want to make content right now, even though it's a very different environment, you can still produce some good work. So kudos to y'all too for making
You guys are super cool about the process
Yeah.
too. Not a headache to work with, super easy, and and for us that's even great. Like we've gone through this already, like I said, more than a few times, and we've been through the experience of actors having to be basically their own crew now.
Yeah.
We've gone
Totally.
from you guys having a crew to now you're just basically doing heavy lifting. And it's great to see just the flexibility that actors come with, to be able to get the job done, and so appreciative.
Yeah.
But you folks were also really a lot of fun. Like rehearsals. I mean, one of my favorite thing about a full cast rehearsal with this group was reading the chats as we were rehearsing, because to me that was the best time ever. Like if you want a hype group, it was this group for real. For real. And I think even though this is a verbatim text show, I think that kind of chemistry still shows through. And I think that's why the process felt easy and breezy, is because Catherine and Blake created this group that really just was about the peace and about having fun and really embodied the message of the show. And so I think Taran wants to go to the revolution.
Yeah. Let's get Kira up in here. And just a little fun thing for everybody. I mean, what we're talking about with all this,
we're about to be nerdy
is literally people holding the phone here and singing these songs and then sending us through text those vocal recordings.
Yeah.
So that's what you're about to hear here, and this is the final product, and here we go. This is
let's talk about the song, because now we're just throwing stuff at people. But the revolution is, I mean, this is for this song the idea was to what was the idea
for revolution?
I'm confused now where we're at.
It became, I can say that while you think about that too, it became kind of the theme song. Remember,
yes,
we opened. So as we heard it, and that was part of the beautiful puzzling that we're talking about. As we heard the final product and looking at the script, we were like, that song needs to be echoed in different places. So we opened with it some, we ended with it, and it had its own life within the body of the piece.
Yeah.
And then for me, it's as you said, it's the main piece, but it's also the full message, of the show, which is, why are we waiting? That to me is the youth right there. It's now. Mm-hmm. It's right now. And I think our struggle for trying to create this song was how do we capture that? Mm. How do we capture that impatience? How do we capture that youthful energy? How do we make people, our goal is to always write a catchy thing that you can't get out of your head. And I think that's even doubly important when you want it to be a strong message, because you want that message to also repeat as you want that melody. So we were really looking at that for this song, Revolution Is Now.
Yeah.
Now you can do it.
Boom. 3, 2, 1.
It's now, it's now. The revolution is now. It's now, it's now. The revolution is now.
Now take your seat here in the grass. Yeah, if you're standing, go ahead, sit down. You belong to this revolution. You've been standing all over the planet, carrying trauma, doing it yourself, cleaning up the mess. Take a rest. Go on, settle in for just a minute. There is much yet to build, much at stake, so take a break. Bask in it. Bask in it. Now listen.
They told us to wait, face another day. Said, son, be patient. Told us, stand up and fight for what is right. Contradiction, saying put your hands down. Saying put your hands down. Putting my body on the line. Only one thing is on my mind. Change is happening this time. Change is happening this time. Putting my body on the line. Only one thing is on my mind. Change is happening this time. Change is happening this time. It's now, it's now. The revolution is now. It's now, it's now. The revolution is
I look around. What's at stake now? Our generation is not backing down. If they won't give us seat, think we are the only fiction. We'll flip the whole damn thing. We'll flip the whole damn thing. Putting my body on the line. Only one thing's on my mind. Change is happening this time. Change is happening this time. Change is happening this time. It's now, it's now. The revolution is now. I'm putting my body on the line. It's now, it's now. The revolution is now. Putting my body on the line. I'm putting my body on the line. The revolution is now. Only one thing is on my mind. Only one thing is on my mind. The revolution is now. Change is happening this time. Change is happening this time. It's now, it's now. Change is happening this time. The revolution is now. The revolution is
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were all jamming.
Yeah.
What you don't see off screen. That's
Jamming
cool.
so
And,
hard.
I
Very
mean, the
glad.
fun part about that process. What was that singing?
Oh, I said I was jamming like so hard. I'm very glad the cameras were off. I was going ham over here.
I love it. I mean, and that's the fun part. Like I remember, like us when we were doing you, Kira, we were like trying all kinds of things out. You know, we're like, can you do this? Can you do that? And the big note that we have at the end was you
her idea. Yeah.
just going for it and decided just to go up.
She's like, what
on
about
it.
this? I'm like, okay, yeah, that'll work.
And what's hilarious to us, we as writers, Taran and I we're always accused by our singers that we tend to write very high stuff, which we laugh at because no matter what, they'll say they start the process of rehearsal saying it's so high,
and then they
always find a note that's higher than what
like
we
they
wrote.
option up,
and they're like, "How about this?" to
Like,
option up. And
okay.
it's always a thing, and we love them for it. And Kara proved that right by choosing something higher than what we wrote,
option
and
up.
it sounded beautiful, and we put it in. So that's really cool.
Oh man, we got a lot of Nathan in the beginning of that song too.
Yeah.
As the revolutionary. Nathan, you want to talk a little bit about being the revolutionary in this piece?
Yeah, because your part, as Catherine was saying, and you guys worked very, very closely together. So maybe we start out with Catherine and the approach to this part and what you guys were really thinking, as this being almost this kind of sense of
narrator,
linchpin, this grounded thing that ran throughout the story. I'll just throw it to you. I'm trying to explain it, and then.
Yeah, so he had a lot of this. He had some specific tasks and specific roles. I think, as I was saying earlier, we wanted to continue to show our audiences these connective moments, these moments that get to the heart of activism, as I was saying, love in action. And so that was part of the charge of the revolutionary, was to be sort of like the truest human, and really calling people in. And I think even, Ricky, to what you were saying about like our truth, like there is a sort of a spiritual element, I think, to the revolutionary of calling people to be, into connection and into unity and love and into care for the earth and into sacredness. Like, remember, we are sacred, as human beings, and this earth is sacred. And so there was that realm. There was at times a levity or calling people into whatever the emotion was, in a way. But also very specifically actually activating the audience. So there was also a task in which with his voice, he needed to make the audiences know that we were like, actually, we're talking to you. We want you to stand up. We want you to take off your shoes, right? And so there was some coaching even in how he said things that really, we needed the audience to catch that we're actually talking to you. And on top of that, he was playing with a kind of spoken word poetry too. And so we wanted him, which is really connected to activism, to spoken word. So we wanted him to catch that rhythm of spoken word in the midst of kind of doing all those things. So it was a multifaceted task, and I'll pass it to you, Nathan,
I mean, like you said it really well. It was a lot of just sort of working with several different layers and finding how all those layers interact with each other in a way that people don't sort of tune out, because oftentimes if you have this sort of ethereal voice, that is kind of punctuating in and out throughout all these different other pieces, like vocal pieces and song pieces and stuff, it's easy for us to sort of tune out. So the thing that makes it accessible to everyone is the humanity of it, especially for something that is in like a spoken word sort of realm. It's the humanity that lies within those words and those voices, and just is the thing that really draws it all together. And I love listening to spoken word poets, and that's one thing that really just draws me in, is when they're just like almost just talking. It's just like blah, 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 and it's beautiful. I mean, as far as like rehearsing it and everything, it was challenging trying to weave all those things together, especially coming off of the emotion that somebody else was giving. That was a hard thing to do as well, because in this format, you don't necessarily hear that person. So you have to like either like remember sort of what they're coming from. In our live rehearsals we did, and so that's when I took the opportunity to really grasp onto what they were saying and how they were saying it, and then sort of leading the audience from that point into the next point. So that's kind of what I was working with, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. It's always so fun to hear yourself in the thing when it's all done too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's one of the things that to me that's interesting as you listen to the whole piece, as you come in and out of these interviews and these folks that are talking, to hear the revolutionary come in. And it's very distinctive, you know, the rhythm of it, the tone of it, so that you don't, when you're listening to this audio thing, you don't have the visual to separate, is he different? You know, so that's one of the things that Catherine did such a great job on. You can listen to that and you know he's a different, in a whole different world in a way, compared to these other folks that are talking verbatim for their interviews, and that works really well. It's super cool. I really enjoy it. I personally really enjoyed listening to this piece, and for me, I think it's everything when it comes to what we want, and I'm going to say protest pieces to be like, you know, where it's art, it activates, you know, and I think those two things are so important in today's world when it comes to what we're trying to do. So I really love it. I just want us to kind of talk a little bit more about, like, I'm so distracted right now because Taran's doing like
Sorry.
1,000 things while I'm trying to talk, and I'm seeing screens flash. But you know,
queuing stuff up.
Yeah, queuing everything up. But I think for you, let's talk about the protest aspect of it. For you as artists and actors, and why this message resonated with you and why you felt so connected to it. Because I know at some point there was tears shed by some, and you know, and everyone really felt connected to the work. So I mean, we can throw it to AJ, then go to Kira, then go to Nathan, and finish up with Catherine.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it was nice coming into a setting where you knew everybody was passionate about what we were already talking about. And so it created not only this safe space, but this empowered space in the rehearsal room. So it wasn't just about reading off a script and developing this character, it was about how do we find this connection, this humanity, this where is our source of empathy coming from, and how can we, as a vessel, as an artist, translate that in our work. And the music obviously has helped tremendously, kind of the call to action, the literal calls to action. I think also moved us as we were listening to Nathan speak. I think I remember when we were finally at the listening party, that we all heard it come together because we were all finished off by recording separately. So I think there was also a moment of disconnection too, just naturally, because if you're recording alone, you kind of have to draw it in yourself. But when you this powerful notion of congregating and coming together and feeling united through each other rather than through anything external. So it was pretty heartwarming and moving for sure.
Yeah. Kira, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think for me, it was, I don't know, like, I feel like if you are a person that has blood pumping in your veins, like, you connect to this piece. And I think, especially like as artists in a time like this, like, for me, like, this piece couldn't have come at a better time. I remember it was very shortly after the court decision about Breonna Taylor's case, and I was just feeling very tired and was kind of in a resting, cycle of what it is to do this work. And coming in contact with this piece and like getting the chance to work on it was really like a revitalization for me. It, just like AJ said, being in a room with people who already understand, what's going on, and to be able to connect with the words you're saying immediately, because like I said, like it's what's happening right now. The revolution is now. And so, yeah, I definitely, be the first to call myself out. I was one of those ones who was boo-booing in the Zoom room because it was just such an immediate connection, and it feels weird, pandemic times, to like feel so connected to people that you never like actually like seen in the physical form before. But it was nothing short of serendipitous for me. And I'm very grateful to have been a part of it.
Nathan?
Yeah, I think the thing that I really love about this piece is that it gives people an opportunity to protest who might not have had that chance. I mean, we all can protest in our own, in many different ways and in our own ways. And it doesn't always necessarily mean having to be out in the big crowds on the street, because I know that was a big thing, a big debate among at least a lot of people that I live with in my house. I know they were talking about being like, hey, do we want to go out into the street? Do we want to do this and this and this when all these crowds are out here and there's coronavirus happening? But I think this really gave people an inlet into that, who might not have had the opportunity to do that. I think that's pretty cool. So like, people going out to a park and doing a protest in a park, like socially distanced, in a way that they, in a way that they still feel activated to do it. And I think it's just cool. It's a cool bird to put in everybody's ears and hearts and minds, to get us all thinking on a collective page. So I really, really enjoyed it for that. And just the opportunity that it allowed for everybody to get into a form of protest and to be able to express and to agree, and raise their fists in solidarity, and all of those. I know, right? All those really, really great life-changing motives that we carry with us from protests throughout history. And it's just a chance for everyone to really jump in and do their part in it too. And I think it's really cool.
That's a great segue for you, Catherine. And also right after this, we're gonna.
Well, you don't have to talk that. Catherine, go ahead.
you guys you remind me of me and Blake. You do. Yeah, well, I love actually what Nathan said, that it offered, kind of like not your everyday protester the opportunity to join in to protest, because I think that was very intentional for us, because we were aware that protest was so important right now, that we needed to activate, and there was an urgency. And we also were aware of how divisive the moment was. And that the last thing we needed was to create a piece that would just preach to the choir or just further polarize people. So, but what I do want to say is that protests are meant to both energize people, which I think, Kiera kind of spoke to that. Multiple people have spoken to that. But also protests are meant to criticize, because it's meant to propel change. And so I think that was the balance that we were finding between music and poetry and solidarity and a safe space to get together. While also, our youth activists did not hold back, and we did very little censoring, a little bit here and there, where we said maybe this sentiment might be more polarizing than where we want to go for the big picture of the piece. But for the most part, we really were open-handed to allow people's voices to criticize the systems and society and to challenge audiences to consider what needs to change. So that's my piece on protest.
And I think that's super important. I think what I appreciate about it is that I think, as you were saying, Catherine, it is so important. Protests are so important. Activism is so important within a democratic society, that we get to participate not only by voting, but by making our voice and opinion heard about certain, we'll say, institutions and how they are run. And that is super important, to hear the voice of the people, and how we want our country and how we want people to be treated in our country. And I think we lose sight of that in society, to be polite, or what Martin Luther King Jr. would have called it, negative peace. Peace that does no good for anyone, right? And so sometimes we are on that side. Oh, well, it's all quiet, we must be doing something right. And the question is, well, I mean, is it really all that quiet? Because maybe we're just not allowing the voices that need to be heard to be heard. And so that's why I love this piece. I love that it's done in this manner. I love that it's done in parks and public spaces. You know, I love that it activates a person to participate. And one of my other favorite things that I love about it is that it wants everybody to dance at the end. You know, and
it was a must-have for me. I was like, please. And together we did it.
Yeah, and that's super cool. You know, it's like, if anything we all understand is like, let's dance.
Yeah. This is where we're going to leave you all, but we're going to leave you on that note of dancing. We would love to play "This Is Where We Dance," which is the last big song in this musical. When we come back out of that, we have something that we're going to share with you with our partner Rachel Elise Johnson, who's jumping on. But all of you, Nathan, Kiera, AJ, Catherine, thank you so much for coming out and joining us. Kiera, I swear I'm going to get it right at some point. And Catherine, would you please just wrap it up with us and do a little bit of intro for "This Is Where We Dance"?
Sure. So, Sophia always says, Sophia was one of the assistant directors, that we have to keep dancing. We have, like, it is a non-verbal moment of solidarity, of joy, of protest, of so many things. And so, we wanted the poet to help shepherd it in, but then we were like, we all just need to dance at the end. And that's kind of like where it all came from.
And here it is.
Yeah.
Everyone around the world, get ready for a brand new beat. The time is here and we're gonna freak out to a rhythm that'll move your feet. We're the face of the revolution, the world is ours to make. Make noise, we've been too quiet, so let's get in the way. We are here, we are here. Come joy, come high. We are here, we are here. This is where we dance. This is where we move our bodies. Everyone is watching us. This is where we dance. And we got nothing else to lose. It's time. This is why we dance. 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 The world will pause. We strut into the room. We are that new whip top down radio boss and hoop. And we will change hearts, shooting for the moon. We've written down the rules, not playing by the book. We are here, we are here. Come joy, come power. We are here, we are here. This is where we dance. This is where we move our bodies. Everyone's watching us. This is where we dance. And we got nothing else to lose. It's time. This is why we dance. 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 We are here. Come joy, come fly. We are here.
All right, and we are back.
Boom.
That's the last song from our show, Good Trouble. Super, super special musical. Such a unique experience to be working on an audio musical, and especially one that has so much impact this year in particular.
And wait a minute, we forgot to say that Nathan Nonhoff was one of the singers on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nathan, who we're about to bring back on anyway, was one of the singers on that, and that's a great leeway to this. So
yeah,
we have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're moving us fast, yo.
I'm trying.
I know, maybe too fast. I mean, no, I just wanted to say, having those folks on was super cool, because
You're making me sleepy.
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Shoot, this is our time. I reclaim my time. I am reclaiming it. It is my time. Anyway, I'm super appreciative they took time out of their day after Thanksgiving to come on and talk about art and talk about music and talk about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
we need more of that style of creativity. Thank you, Blind Spot Collective out of San Diego.
Blake, who wasn't here tonight, but
and Blake and
well.
Catherine.
Yeah.
And if you are in that area, please look out for Blind Spot Collective and the work that they are doing. They are smart, and they're doing the work that others just aren't doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I find them really cool. So I wanted to take that time to do that because I think it's super important for us to call out and talk about the theaters that are doing the work for marginalized voices and doing the art for marginalized voices, which is a good leeway to bringing on Rachel.
Boom.
That's all.
As long as you wrapped it nicely, I'm fine with it.
Well, you didn't give me a chance to. I mean, goodness gracious.
Nathan and Rachel, two of our creative team members here. Nathan, of course, you've already seen, and great job, Nathan, on that song, on that last.
Oh, thank you.
Singing on it, the solo.
No one's gonna understand revolutionary, but
you can take revolutionary off your title now if you want. And then Rachel Elise Johnson, who is our director of our New Works Musical Festival. She worked, of course, with us on it.
Her
on this
official
last
title
year.
is Festival Artistic Producer.
Sorry. I'm not trying to take you from producer to director.
I mean, it's fine. The directing's fun too.
You look beautiful, by the way. You look great for it being 10 p.m. Chicago time. Is that where we're at?
8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock. We're still early enough.
Man, I
give you limited. I give some effort for once.
It gets dark too early, and I don't know anymore.
It gets dark at about 4:30.
Yeah, woo, I know. Same. Well, go ahead, buddy.
Well, yeah. I mean, this will be short. Thank you, folks that have stayed with us and been watching, and those that are going to watch this later. But we kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening with Alan and Gray, because we get questions about our musicals and we get questions about what we're doing, and then we've been doing this new Voices concert every month, and what is that going to? Why are you doing that? So we thought we'd take a little time to kind of discuss and talk a little bit about it, and bring on Rachel, our festival artistic producer, to talk about, some of the projects that we're going to be looking forward to in the future. One of those projects is a Alan and Gray Music Festival, which we did this year to raise money for Broadway Cares. But next year, we are turning it into a festival for new works, and we will produce their musicals, sort of like we did this year digitally, and give an opportunity for them to live in this world. Sorry, I have turkey brain, everybody. I'm doing work after Thanksgiving. Should be a crime against humanity. I can't feel that bad because I picked the date. Anyway, I'm drinking a Diet Coke to help me, and it's just making me all bubbly. But anyway.
Fair.
Yeah. Anyway, so, one of those things is the festival. And in this festival, we can kind of just throw it to Rachel, because she can kind of tell you a little bit about what our hopes are for this festival, because I think we've had enough conversations about it for her to do that. Let the women speak. Women are the future. Guys, shut up.
Thank you. Yeah, there's nothing we can't do, right?
Yeah.
So thank you. First of all, what a phenomenal concert to get to experience prior to getting to talk about this. And what a great segue for what we plan to do. I was really excited and really honored to actually be a part of the first festival that happened with Ricky and Taran's work over the summer. And when they asked me to come on and take part in this festival and take part in this position, I can't thank you all enough. This festival is about amplifying the voices of people and experiences of people that we don't hear from enough. And in theater, especially, or in the arts and musical arts, there's an opportunity to push so much further than we have. And the beauty of this festival is it's going to give us the platform for which to do that. We are hoping to have anywhere from 4 to 6 works that are new musical works by or about marginalized voices and from the perspective and voices of people we haven't heard from before. And I think it's really, really important to do this work now. We needed to do it before, but to be able to do it now in a time when we are focused and there's such a spotlight on what's been happening around the world and what's been happening to those voices that have been so long stunted, I think it's such an important opportunity in this digital age to kind of take us to the next level and to push past the boundaries of art and musical art and the way we've treated it in film and on stage and really listen to what's out there.
That's super cool, and I'm glad you have come aboard. We if you need a spark, Rachel's a spark, and you definitely need that energy. And I'm so excited. And the really great thing is our meetings are very fast, and we enjoy. Taran and I enjoy that process of all 4 of us just getting together and just meeting and going, okay, we're done. So that's been super cool to experience and still have things put together, which is the hard part of all of this. And one of the things for the festival we're doing for this process, we're actually going to be going out and looking for these pieces. And I think I'm excited. That part is really exciting for us to go and search for the new works, as opposed to having this submission process like most movie festivals or film festivals do and stuff. It's a submission process, but I think we're just going to go out and look for these works, and really go after the ones that we think are really vital.
One of the really exciting things about having done the concert series every month as well that we're all doing and continuing to do is that it's really an opportunity, kind of like a pseudo vetting process where we really get to see these new works that we want to amplify, and we get to see not only how we interact with them and if we have a relationship that is a growing one, but also how our audience is interacting with them. So everyone who's watching these New Voices concert series, your opinion and your comments really do matter. We really are taking into account how everyone's interacting and seeing these pieces that are coming out.
Sort of. Sort of.
I said pseudo.
I mean, pseudo. I mean, no, not really, but yeah.
Well, the concert series is really cool too, though. The concert series is really amazing too because it's a web, right? With each new person who submits and each new performance we bring in, they introduce other people to this, to what we're doing at Alan Gray, and they introduce us to them in turn, right? It's an opportunity for us to meet people we might not have otherwise met. And I think what's the coolest thing about this is we're in different places, and yet we are making art. We are showing that you can bring music and musicals to people anywhere, and you can make it from everywhere. And it's a really beautiful way to show how wide that net can spread, especially in theater.
Yeah. Nathan, you're one of our artistic associates at Allen and Gray. What kind of work are you excited to discover? What is the kind of work you're really looking forward to bringing to the festival?
Stuff that just makes you upset because you can't sleep at night because you're thinking about it. Yeah, I think it's going to be, I mean, the new works, New Voices in itself is pretty cool. And I know that, and I'm really excited to hear some stories that maybe we haven't heard. And not just from people that we haven't ever really heard from, but in a way also that we haven't really ever heard before as well. And I think that's what's really cool about the new works and New Voices is all these different opportunities and different creative ways that we can hear and experience these stories as well. and all the cool ways that people are coming up with to do that. And so I think I'm really excited about that as well. You know, in terms of pushing what theater is, what it looks like, where it's going. Sort of being on the forefront of that, I think, is really cool.
Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, you're looking at half of the creative team of who put together our festival from last year, from I guess from this year. It feels like last year. From this year when we did all of our original musicals as digital productions. And one of the things that we realized that is so cool about, especially when working on new works that amplify marginalized voices, one of the things we realized is that because we're doing all of this in the digital spectrum, it offers us to not only amplify those voices from wherever they're coming from, but also to deliver those stories to any voices that can't necessarily physically come to a theater. And so there's a really very unique opportunity there that Rachel, Nathan, and us, and then Lonnie Hughes, our other producer on board, we take a lot of pride and responsibility in knowing that we have that toolbox, at our disposal for the first time.
I think it's a part of the larger conversation for theater itself, and we've talked about this a couple times throughout the year with other artistic directors and theater professionals. Now that we kind of have an idea of what the vaccine is going to be, and we have an idea of kind of timeline now, but there's still a problem that persists in theater. Sure, we can go back to that, but the problem is,
still antiquated.
There's still some issues, and those issues have not been solved during that time because theater's been trying to do the same thing it was doing when they had audiences. And it's crazy that they did not embrace this time to expand past their usual ticket holders. And I don't understand that mindset of theater itself. And it's not what we here at our festival that we're looking to do at all. But the question is, how do we use this festival to push theater past what it already knows and what it already does? And I'll throw that question to Rachel.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because I have a lot of thoughts about this. As someone who comes from working in storefront theater and spending a lot of time in like that traditional theater world, I thought it's antiquated for a long time. I think it's unfortunate that, we haven't taken an opportunity to propel ourselves into the future of what we could be. And I think that this festival is an opportunity for us to not only see new work and see it done differently, but to also present it differently and show that it doesn't have to be, on a stage with 500 people in the audience. It could be in a digital stage with thousands of people in the audience, right? Or hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world experiencing it together. It's a chance for us to really push and try shows that have 2 people or 40 people. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have 45 people to be on a Broadway stage when you're in this type of stage. And I think it's a chance to really see what people have made and what they can make when there are no limits. And I'm excited to see no limits. I want to be surprised by theater again. That's what I want to know. I want to hear new sounds and new voices and different perspectives. And I want to share it. And I want to see it shared with the world. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have people like Rachel in charge of theater itself who are looking for that. I think there's a lot of voices of artistic art directors and producers out there who say they want that, but don't want that. You know what I mean? It's what you say in this business, unfortunately. But you're really looking for a commercial piece that's going to pay the bills half the time. Or you're looking to develop it into a commercial piece. You're not really looking for that new voice. And there are some theaters that are really good and they're really looking for that new voice, and that's what they specialize in, and that's what they do. And I would love to see something that's a little bit more fluid, that really is thinking about the future of theater itself, and really searching for that. And because I think we have this digital platform that is available to us to present theater in a way, and to kind of like workshop in a way that you could never workshop theater before. And actors still get paid. You know what I mean? All the things still happen. You can see equity dragging their feet in these deliberations with SAG about this aspect of it, trying to figure out how does this work as a union.
Yeah, it's the Wild West of theater.
Right. Now that they come up with this agreement, I want to see how theaters do this, because I think theaters could be really smart, and they could go, okay, if you're a local audience member, you of course you buy your ticket. If you're outside this zip code, this kind of theater is available to you Tuesdays and Thursdays, where you can buy a digital seat to the show, and that could be a new form of getting people to your show that enlarges. Why wouldn't we want that? Why are unions fighting that? I don't understand.
It's true accessibility. It's real accessibility. It is making the art accessible to anyone and everyone who has access to the internet and a screen, right? And almost everybody now has that, especially in the US. Almost everyone has the ability to connect to the internet and be a part of it, and to give musicals, to give art to people in their hands in that way. It's never going to replace live theater too. You know, that fear that, oh, that'll be the death of live theater. No, it won't. It'll be the life of it, because you'll see it on your screen and think, God, I want to see that in person.
Yeah.
Like, the ability to really use, I think that I'm hoping that theaters see this as an opportunity to expand their audience, to really see it as an opportunity to expand their work, to expand their mindset, and stop thinking so narrowly, right? We have so much opportunity now. And what I love about this, and I said it earlier, is that you get performers and people from all over the country working in one thing. Yeah. You don't get to, right? Unless you fly them in, you don't
I can't help but see a correlation to what the music industry went through.
Film industry.
But I'm thinking of when Napster came out, for the music industry, and because they chose not to adopt, it decimated them. And I mean, if there's one thing that any industry in entertainment should learn, it's adopt the internet. Right. Like, figure out how to use it and create artistry that is real and authentic to you through it.
I mean, it's happening. It's literally happening to the movie industry right now, right? We are in a pandemic, so people can't go to the movie theater. And now the big companies are going, like Disney, oh, all right, let's just figure out how do we use streaming.
Right. Let's put Wonder Woman out on HBO.
Let's just do it. And they're finding, oh, we can make a lot of money doing it this way too. And it's like, duh. What do you think Netflix has been doing? And it's sort of revitalizing the industry in a way too, because now you go, okay, where the art house theaters have gone out of business, now we're figuring out a new way to do this, because of all the streamers. We're able to make art house films again, because the streamers have that kind of money. It's available, larger audience. More people are seeing art house films than ever before. You're not seeing 500,000 people just seeing an art house film. Now you're seeing millions are seeing these films. And I think that is super important. And theater has that chance. And they're not taking advantage of it. I mean, just people I know, we know a lot of theaters, and they're just still so antiquated about it. They're still not thinking ahead of the game. They're filming concerts on the stage to raise money. I'm just blown away. I mean, it's like, no offense, my old folks that I love, but I mean, come on, we got to do better. It's like, it's crazy to me. I don't get it.
There's a fear of the new. There's a fear of something that they're not comfortable with, that they don't know how to navigate. And let's be honest, I don't necessarily know how to navigate it. I might be a little bit younger, but that doesn't mean that I know how to bring musical theater or musicals to life in a digital platform. I've learned, and I'm learning, and I'm growing, but I'm not afraid of the challenge. We have to, as theater makers, we have to embrace it.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's this thing about the credit. Were you going to say something, Nathan?
No, I'm just agreeing.
I think there's a sense of like them they fear losing their credibility. This is a very, very important word to theaters for some reason, credibility. And you've heard producers throw it around, my credibility. I don't care about how long you've been doing this, how much money you have, as long as you produce good work. That to me should be the credibility. That in itself, keeping this art form alive should be the idea of credibility. You know, if you're not bringing anything to the table besides doing work that other theaters have already done really well, and you're now just doing it regionally, please don't talk to me about your credibility. I mean, I'm just being real and honest here. I mean, bring something to the table. And our small theaters are the ones that are supposed to be pushing this. Now, I don't expect this from the big commercial theaters.
They can't. The big commercial theaters can't.
Right. I expect this from the ones that are like 300, 400 seats theaters, you know, that have that flexibility. And I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, there definitely are challenges there. I mean, I work with a small theater company, and they're trying to embrace that challenge as well. It's a hard time right now, unless you have like the resources. But I agree with you. I think that there's been an opportunity to really step forward and for small companies to kind of take control of what theater looks like and say, this is what we demand, this is what we can make, watch us do it. And some have done it, some are trying, and that's beautiful. That's all, right? That's all we're asking for, but not as many as there should be. Why is that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why not just go for it? What's the worst that could happen? You're gonna get locked at home. You're already locked at home.
Well, and that's what the great equalization is of this year, is that the person who has a 20-seat theater has as big of an opportunity as the person who had the 2,000-seat theater, because of this year, and because no one, you have access to the same size of audience, and you have access to the same kind of content, because no one can use any of the actual physical tools that they once had. So it's very interesting in that way.
Yeah, but I think so we say all of this mostly because
to implore other creators to create.
We're not, I mean, well, we want to see great creations. We want to see great work. But I think ultimately also is that we are rolling out next year's festival, June 2021. If you are a creator and you have work, and you want us to look at it, you know, Rachel is your person. You can go to our website at alanandgray.com. There's a submission process if you want to do that process. Otherwise, we will also be looking out and keeping our ears to the ground. We want to see work from all voices. You know, we want work that features, I mean, if your work features all dudes, we're not interested.
No.
We're just going to be honest. If your work features 75% dudes, we're not interested. You know, that's just not our route.
Unless they're in drag, potentially.
Right. Exactly. And even then,
like a queer experience or something different story.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, and I also want to say that, you know, if your cast is, you know, all white and one black person, that is not the work we're looking for, you know? So we're really looking for work that represents the world that we want to see, and that we think is fresh, that's telling stories that we haven't heard. And most of art has been European-centered for a long time now. And there's not a story that we haven't heard from you. So...
and if your art is like, it has been in past, right? You wrote something and you had done it or had a thought in your head that it was, you know, white centric, maybe start to rethink that, right? Especially if you're a creator, especially if you're a new works creator, rethink the lines that you are drawing. There is no limit to who can play those roles. And maybe that's what you consider before you submit. Maybe that's a conversation you need to have with yourself.
Yeah. And if you're a questioning creator who has that kind of work, and you're looking for that, I mean, go ahead and submit anyway, because we're happy to ask our hard questions to you to make you think about that work and what you're doing. And I think it's gonna be a super fun process. Our goal is to have 4 to 5 shows in the festival itself, and we're gonna produce some really great work and hopefully get a whole bunch of people connected in the process.
Yeah. alanandgray.com to submit. And say, hi, Rachel, in the subject.
So excited for all these emails. Bring them on.
Yeah.
I love it.
It'll be fun. And, you know, thanks, Rachel, for coming on and just talking and letting us gripe a little bit. We love to gripe about.
I like it too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Nathan, for being on both segments.
Yeah.
As a talent and as a creative here.
That's why he's an artistic associate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's what they do.
And thank you everyone for watching our show tonight, day after Thanksgiving.
And you'll be able to watch it again because we're just going to leave it up.
Absolutely.
You know, and let those views keep going. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah. See everyone soon.
Happy holidays.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
It was just waves and waves of people marching, and I remember that it was pouring rain, and everyone was soaking wet, and no one gave a shit. It was just screaming, it was just drums, it was just amazing, it was. And I don't know, it was just such a life-changing moment to be there.